Hi, and welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow. I'm your host, Shaun. With me here is Ron Sensei. Each week we get together to discuss a well-regarded, highly received film against a cheesy blockbuster.
Basically an artsy-fartsy film versus a mindless good time. Now, you guys might realize we don't have our usual glorious screensaver.
Because this time we have a guest host.
Ba-bam!
All right, so for people that don't know, this is my friend Jesse. We previously did Highbrow Lowbrow together as a podcast where we reviewed the Best Picture Academy Award winner with the top box office earner to see who was right, the critics or the masses. It evolved into this podcast with me and Ron, but for this episode, we decided to bring in Jesse for the show. Jesse, any thoughts on our previous endeavor of Highbrow Lowbrow?
Well, kudos to you guys for carrying on the legacy that Shaun and I established 10 years ago. I think the last audio podcast that we did, we spoke about there's more to come in the future from us, right? Which was an unfulfilled promise until you guys showed up on YouTube. So congratulations on continuing the legacy.
Awesome. So in this episode, with our special guest, we had Jesse pick the genre this time. And what's it?
Well, yeah, let me speak on that. So I chose a Czech medieval epic from, I believe it's 1967 it came out. So medieval epic is the genre and the film is Marketa Lazarova.
Can we virtually cheers?
Yeah.
Virtually cheersing.
There we go. Directed by František Vlasil, Marketa Lazarova is an acclaimed Czech epic set during the transition period from paganism to Christianity during the 13th century that focuses on the Kozak family, a clan of brutal and superstitious pillagers who ravaged the bleak medieval countryside on horseback. One armed Adam and his brother Mikolas violently abduct the virginal Marketa Lazarova, the daughter of a Kozak rival, and hold her hostage, leading to a monumental battle and an unlikely romance. So, Jesse, what did you think of this highbrow pick?
All right, so this is my choice. Obviously, this is not going to drive your YouTube viewership up, that's for sure. It's a fairly obscure pick. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes long, so it's not for the faint of heart. It's certainly not for everybody, but I love this movie. I saw it about 5 years ago, and I was 35 at the time. Been watching movies avidly for 20 years, and you get jaded. You don't think you're going to see something new that blows your mind, and then I watched this and it immediately rocketed into my top 5. It's still in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I know that's a big statement, but I stand by it and I love it. I think it's visual poetry. I think the audio is so bizarre and weird and I love it for that. It's all post-production. They seem to not have captured any audio on set for their year and a half of production, which is totally strange. And it's disorienting and has all these flashbacks, but there's so much to dig into, and it merits rewatching. And you could just watch the first part of it, and then maybe the next, because it's broken into parts. It has these title cards that interrupt this somewhat incoherent plot. But I find that it merits reviewing, and you get more depth out of it each time you watch it. So obviously, I love it. I chose it. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Ron, what do you think?
You really have to be a fan of film. It is not really for everyone because you have to. This is like a black belt. You have to come in with some experience and you have to have seen a bunch of films already in order for you to kind of grasp and appreciate a lot of the stuff that's happened here. 1967, right? So a lot of people are trying new things. The title cards are kind of like, I almost wonder if it was because it was a historical kind of, it's a historical take on maybe a tale of in that country.
Yeah.
It could be. It's based on a novel from 1931. Yeah. And I don't know where he got the inspiration, but I'll be the first one to admit that the plot can feel incoherent.
Yeah.
But the style of the movie is what overrides that for me. I know that sounds ridiculous maybe to some casual viewers, like, what? You don't understand the plot? Why are you watching this, right? But the imagery is so amazing and there's so many camera setups that the camera hardly ever is in the same place for long in the way they edited it. So there's constantly something new, and also the director has this appreciation for nature and showcasing nature, both the brutality and the beauty of it throughout the entire picture.
There was so much to dig into it. However, I did get hung up pretty decently on the plot. I Wikipedia'd along a little bit to try and understand it and capture some of the names and the faces to the story. I think with both films, you know, they feel fairly brutish in a sense. Meaning that they deal with brutes. You know, no one here feels especially pure. I mean, obviously there's certain characters that feel virginal and pure in that sense, but everyone exists somewhat really close to the muck and the grime. And I can enjoy that. And I was trying to find some deeper meaning or, you know, draw some deeper richness from it. But I must admit, it was a little bit difficult for me to draw that deeper richness from it. So I think ultimately for me, this film rewards repeat viewings. But I don't know if it is for everyone to sort of watch it again and again and again. If I was feeling up to it, though, I could see myself giving it another watch to see if I could delve more into it and discover more within the movie.
I think the movie favors style more than story, because I mean, every shot is like a Guess commercial, you know, with the black and white thing, and then just the way everything was done.
It's arresting. Yeah, it feels like so many images could be the poster, right?
Yeah.
I think we've made it clear this movie's not for everyone.
I guess that's what we thought about Marketa
Lazarova.
Marketa Lazarova. Next up is the Lowbrow pick, my pick, Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is a 1985 romantic historical adventure film directed by Paul Verhoeven and starring Rutger Hauer, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tom Burlington, and Jack Thompson. After being hired for an aborted coup, a group of unscrupulous warriors is abruptly disbanded. One of the mercenaries, Martin, is determined to get revenge on his dismissive employer, Arnolfini. To carry out his plan, Martin abducts the lovely Agnes, the intended wife of Arnolfini's son, Stephen. Soon, Martin and Stephen are locked in an ongoing battle to see who will ultimately win the hand of Agnes. All right, what do you guys think of Flesh and Blood? Jesse,
what did you think?
There's so much absurdity in this movie, but it is fun. It is fun, and you know, highly offensive in certain interludes. There's some nasty stuff that goes down. I mean, but Verhoeven chose to do, in order to show the depraved manner of the medieval age, is to just show like a succession of women like pouring wine down their chests and saying like, "Oh, come and lick this off of me," to the men around them. How many times did that happen in this movie? Like 10 times. He just loves that shot. Just pour the wine on your chest. And do that again. Do that again. But I could make the argument that this is basically the exact same movie as Marketa Lazarova.
Yeah, exactly.
So many similarities. It was crazy watching this after seeing the previous movie.
Yeah.
I thought this was a very interesting contrast to Marketa Lazarova. There's not really any super forgivable characters. They're all sort of scoundrels in a certain sense. I mean, you could argue that maybe the prince isn't that much of a scoundrel, but he's like a Dudley Do-Right, but only because he's like prim and proper and he can sort of be a Dudley Do-Right.
I think he could have stood up for the mercenaries because he appeared to be bros with them at the beginning, you know? They were fighting alongside each other, and he never did anything noble in that regard. He just went back to his kingdom and went to his invention laboratory or whatever that thing.
He didn't really give a shit.
So I mean, but in terms of like all the characters, no character is like a good guy. You know, everyone's pretty you know, scrupulous. I'm not sure what that word is, but but I guess within that realm of character, you have varying levels of good deeds or good relationships or relationships that work for certain people. You do root for certain people at certain points in the film. Like you root for the noble people to sort of come back. You have the sort of disgraced captain who gets the plague and deals with it, but he sort of failed in the beginning, but then he sort of comes back and makes a good show of himself towards the end. And then you have the prince who sort of comes back on top. You have Martin who acts as like a surprisingly good leader for the team. And you even admire Jennifer Jason Leigh's character for being able to sort of roll with the punches and own her victimization, which is like sort of good and sort of bad, in terms of like political views or whatever. But it is an interesting and worthwhile. I think it does make her a somewhat smart and interesting character to be portrayed as a victim, but then try to own it or establish your own sense of control within that realm. But yeah, I did like the intrigue in this movie. I did like the way it was shot. It was sort of action packed, but it was pretty despicable, and I don't know if it was despicable. It was despicable in a way to feel like a revelatory thing. But I do feel like it's an interesting movie.
What I like about this film that I didn't quite like about Marketa is that the female characters have agency. She's very active in her own thing. She's not just one-dimensional. I feel like Marketa Lazarova, that's the title of the book and the movie, but she was barely doing anything there. She just kind of like went along with everything, and then towards the end she had like a little bit about something. I don't know. Here it's very clear. Every character played what their powers are. Stephen being smart, he played whatever he had to do doing that. Rutger Hauer, he was the brute. He was with the sword. He starts killing people. That's what he did. Agnes, Jennifer Jason Leigh, she was the temptress. She's mischievous in that way. Even in the beginning with the maid, she says, "Go fuck that guy. I'm your boss. You should do what I tell you to do." She was very strong-willed, and therefore she played that character. It's very unapologetic and despicable. I think that's the right word. It was so when I first saw this, I was so shocked.
It's a dirty movie, dude.
It's a dirty ass movie,
Yeah.
but it doesn't pull any punches, and it's one of a kind that way.
Let's talk about practical matters. There are at least 4 one in a million throws that happen in this movie. I'll just name a couple of them. Like one, the Agnes character is about to shoot Stephen with a gun.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And over the castle wall comes a piece of plague-infested dog meat that blocks the revolver at exactly the moment that the bullet is coming out of it. So, okay, that's a questionable moment there. Number 2 that I'll throw to you guys, Agnes puts her locket inside an orange, some kind of a piece of fruit, and somehow off the top of the castle wall throws
an orange
300 yards, and it lands right on Stephen's horse.
Yeah.
And then he opens it, and he sees the locket, and it's clear she still loves me, right? That wasn't believable to me at all. I mean, well, first of all, the throw is ridiculous, but secondly, that locket, I mean, if it was me, I would thinking, she doesn't care.
Yeah, she doesn't want me anymore.
She's just throwing her locket away and saying, I'm with this guy now, I'm with Martin.
It's Saint Martin, bro. it's Saint Martin. What about the key that landed perfectly over there?
Yeah.
Or the crucifix?
Yeah.
On the
Stephen throwing the dog thing into the well.
Yeah.
All right. Let me talk about one other thing. I want to say 2 more things, but here I'll do one first. Okay. So Martin gets thrown down in the plague-infested water well, right? And then I guess he's okay afterward because he comes out and he's like kissing Agnes, and then half an hour later she's kissing Stephen as well. So as far as I'm concerned, they're all gonna die.
Well, it was raining. It was. I
don't know if that's a good excuse.
Because she was sucking on his finger. She was sucking on his finger too. I was like, oh shit.
she's got to get it. She's got to get it. I mean,
then it was raining.
I have two explanations.
Steven got. I mean, what about that electrocution with the lightning?
That was bad plague, though. That was bad plague. It was like instant death plague.
There's two things. Martin could be super religious powered or whatever, and he's immune to plague because he's like this. He's like Saint Martin. Yeah. Or the other explanation is that you have to like take in the water, and Martin doesn't necessarily have to have like sucked in the water, but he could have.
But the other dude just touched the little girl.
His whole body is in it, man. His whole body is in it.
He should have gotten like plagued up to all hell. But I don't know. I feel
he's
like
a replicant, bro.
Yeah. And then everyone like as soon as they even touch the water, they get like the horrible disease. Like that one lady gets the disease instant death.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I guess that's it. So let's go to verdict.
All right, Jesse, let's start off with you. Which movie did you end up liking more?
Well, it was my choice to watch Marketa Lazarova, so that's still my pick. But I had never heard of Flesh and Blood before, and it was interesting to see a Verhoeven movie that I hadn't heard of. Apparently, this was his first English language movie as well. So, and after he made it, he moved to the States to try to learn American culture better, and later made RoboCop and several other very successful movies. And he continues to be a provocateur to this day with the movies that he directs. And so I am a fan of his work, but as I said, Marketa Lazarova is in my top 5 of all time. So I love that one, and that would be my choice of these two.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go with Marketa Lazarova too, because I think both films feel very similar to each other, or not, they have very similar themes throughout each other. Both films are pretty brutish, and I feel like I need to take a shower after watching both films. But I would also say that what Flesh and Blood has narrative-wise, or has like a very specific and direct story and a lot of intrigue. I think there is a lot to pull from Marketa Lazarova. I feel like there's a lot of imagery, a lot of richness within the story and the context of what was going on. I think there's a lot of interesting elements from the way they have title cards in the beginning of each sort of vignette or scene that you can derive like connections and relationships with scenes later on in the film. And I think also that stylistically, it's very interesting and exciting. And then finally with Flesh plus Blood, I think it is easier to watch. I think people can watch it and get through it more easy than they could get through Marketa Lazarova. But because of the reward you would get from watching Marketa Lazarova on repeat viewings, I would ultimately go with that film because I think it does provide a lot of deep inner context that would be interesting to think about and check out.
Yeah, Marketa Lazarova to me is a good find because I wouldn't have watched it if it weren't recommended or if I had, if it wasn't like I had to watch a 2-hour or 30-minute film, right? So I learned a lot in terms of style. I like the, the way the whole thing happened. Like you're coming in the middle of every scene, not just like the beginning, middle, end of the movie. Each and every scene, every time you see a title card, you're kind of like stuck in a short story by itself. That's part of the whole. But to me, Flesh and Blood, it's been with me for a long, long time now. It's still a scar there. I can never forget it. And, it's just a brilliant movie that way. It's so shocking, even today. And it's done by a director that I really, really like. I love his work. And so my pick is Flesh and Blood.
Okay. So that's what all three of us thought of those two films.
Be sure to tune in next time when we try to find out who was right, Shaun or Ron, or another special guest.